You need to understand this before you do anything. Narcissists are not operating on the same set of rules as you. You think that calling them out, confronting them, exposing them will make them change, that they'll see their faults and adjust their behavior. That's not how it works. A narcissist is not looking for truth. They're looking for control. They don't engage in conversations to seek understanding. They engage to dominate, to manipulate, to shift the blame. So the moment you call them out, they don't reflect, they retaliate. They don't own their mistakes. They turn the tables and make you the villain. This is why so many people feel trapped in relationships with narcissists, because they fall into the trap of thinking that logic, fairness, and truth will win. It won't. A narcissist isn't playing fair, and they're certainly not playing to lose. The moment you expose them, they'll rewrite the narrative. They'll make you seem irrational, overly emotional, even crazy. They'll twist your words, fabricate details, and manipulate people against you. And what happens? You become the bad guy, the difficult one, the one who's overreacting. They win the moment you engage in their game, because their game is built on deception. So if you think calling them out is the solution, you've already lost. The key is not confrontation, it's disengagement. Narcissists thrive on emotional reactions. They poke, they prod, they push buttons, and they wait. The moment you react, they've got you. If you get angry, they'll call you aggressive. If you cry, they'll call you weak. If you defend yourself, they'll call you defensive. No matter what you do, they will find a way to twist it against you. So the most powerful thing you can do is starve them of what they crave, your emotional energy. You have to become indifferent, unshaken, unmoved. Emotional detachment doesn't mean ignoring them or pretending they don't exist. It means refusing to give them what they want, your reactions. When they provoke you, stay neutral. When they bait you, don't bite. Speak calmly, keep responses short, and never justify yourself to them. A narcissist is like a fire. They need fuel to keep burning. Your emotions, that's the fuel. Take it away and the fire dies down. A narcissist will spread false stories about you. They will twist events, fabricate lies, and make themselves the victim. You can't control what they say, but you can control what people see. If you react impulsively, yelling, defending yourself emotionally, trying to get people to take your side, you validate their claims. You become the person they've painted you to be. Instead, move in silence. Maintain composure. Be consistent in your actions. Your behavior over time will speak louder than their accusations. People eventually see patterns. If you stay calm, collected, and focused on your own life while they continue their manipulative tactics, the contrast will become clear. Their own behavior will expose them. The goal is not to prove yourself to anyone. It's to let reality do the proving for you. You don't reason with a narcissist. You don't negotiate with them. You set boundaries. And boundaries are not requests. They are rules. If you ask a narcissist to respect your boundaries, you've already lost. They don't respect boundaries because they don't respect you. They will push, test, and break them the moment they get a chance. That's why boundaries mean nothing unless you enforce them. You have to be willing to walk away, to cut access, to say this is the line, and if you cross it, I'm gone. And here's where people struggle, because narcissists will not let go easily. They will guilt trip you, play the victim, manipulate your emotions, and use everything they know about you to keep you trapped. But if you bend, if you hesitate, if you allow them to violate your boundaries even once, they will never take them seriously. Silence is a weapon. Narcissists need engagement to control the situation. If you respond, they have an opening. If you argue, they have a foothold. But if you give them nothing, they have no power. Silence takes away their ability to manipulate the conversation. When you stop feeding into their mind games, they lose control. Strategic silence is not ignoring them in a passive way. It's a calculated decision to deprive them of the response they seek. It's refusing to entertain their chaos. It's removing yourself from their narrative. You are not obligated to defend yourself to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. You are not required to respond to every lie they tell. Let them talk. Let them create their illusions. The truth will reveal itself in time. The ultimate power move against a narcissist is not exposing them. It's freeing yourself from their influence. You don't need them to admit they were wrong. You don't need them to change. You don't need justice in the way you think you do. You need freedom. You need peace. And that comes from reclaiming your mental space. Narcissists consume your thoughts, even when they're not around. They make you second-guess yourself, overthink interactions, and feel like you're constantly defending yourself, even in your own mind. That's where the real battle happens. You don't just need to cut them off physically. You need to remove them from your mental space. This means focusing on your own growth. It means surrounding yourself with people who respect and value you. It means learning to trust your own reality again. Because when you finally stop playing their game, When you stop looking for closure, when you stop seeking validation from someone who will never give it, that's when you win. A narcissist's greatest fear is losing control. They manipulate, deceive, and gaslight because they need to dictate the narrative. They need to be at the center of attention, the one pulling the strings. But when you step out of their control, when you refuse to play their game, they panic. This is why they escalate when they sense they're losing their grip on you. They'll do whatever it takes to pull you back in. They'll apologize, love bomb, act as if they've changed, only to turn around and do it all over again the moment they regain control. You have to recognize this cycle, this pattern of manipulation, the way they shift from villain to victim to savior in the blink of an eye. They never truly change, they only adjust their strategy. And if you don't see it for what it is, you'll fall into the same trap over and over again. So what do? You take back control, not by fighting them, but by refusing to engage. See, narcissists are fueled by your reactions. The moment you stop responding the way they expect, they start to lose their grip. When they insult you and you don't react. When they spread lies and you don't defend yourself. When they try to guilt trip you and you remain unmoved. That's when they realize they no longer have power over you. And that terrifies them. But this is where many people struggle. Because cutting off a narcissist doesn't just mean ignoring them. It means truly detaching. It means breaking free from the emotional hold they have over you. It means no longer seeking validation from them. No longer hoping they'll change. No longer waiting for an apology that will never come. You don't heal by proving them wrong. You heal by walking away and never looking back. And let me be clear about something. Walking away is not weakness. It's not surrender. It's not avoiding the problem. It's taking control of your life. Because the strongest people are not the ones who fight battles that can't be won. They are the ones who know when to step away. They are the ones who realize their energy is too valuable to waste on someone who will never respect them. A narcissist will do everything in their power to make you doubt yourself. They will make you question your own reality, your own worth, your own decisions, and if you let them, they will shape the way you see yourself. That's why breaking free from them is not just about cutting ties. It's about rebuilding yourself. It's about rediscovering who you are outside of their influence. Because here's the truth. Narcissists don't target weak people. They go after strong individuals, people with empathy, kindness, and resilience. But they twist those qualities, use them against you, make you believe that your kindness is a flaw, that your empathy is a weakness. They manipulate you into thinking you need them, when in reality they need you. They feed off your strength, your energy, your willingness to see the good in people. That's why when you take that away, when you finally realize your worth, they crumble. And this is why you must heal, not just for yourself, but so they never get to do this to you again. So you recognize the signs early, so you never let another person manipulate your reality, so you never let someone else's twisted perception of you become the truth you believe. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It takes effort. But the first step is understanding that you don't need closure from them. You don't need them to admit they were wrong. You don't need them to validate your experience. The only validation you need is your own. The only truth you need is the one you already know. And once you stop seeking their approval, once you stop waiting for them to change, once you fully embrace the fact that their behavior has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them, that's when you're free. That's when you win. And let me tell you something. Walking away from a narcissist is only the beginning. Because once you leave, once you detach, once you stop feeding their need for control, they will come back harder than ever. They will try to hoover you back in, whether it's through guilt, charm, fake apologies, or even threats. They don't actually miss you. They miss the power they had over you. You have to be prepared for this, because if you're not, you'll fall right back into the trap. You'll start second-guessing yourself. You'll wonder if maybe they've really changed this time. You'll feel tempted to respond, to explain, to defend yourself. But let me be clear, a narcissist doesn't want closure. They want access. The moment you engage, even for a second, you give them an opening to pull you back in. So what do you do instead? You stay firm. You don't respond. You don't explain. You don't negotiate. You don't play their game. You act like they don't exist, because in your world, they don't anymore. This is what truly drives a narcissist insane. Your indifference, not your anger, not your sadness, but your complete and total lack of reaction. But let's be real. This isn't easy, because walking away from a narcissist isn't just about cutting them off physically. It's about rewiring your mind. It's about breaking the emotional chains they've wrapped around you. It's about unlearning the lies they made you believe, because they told you that you weren't good enough. They made you believe that you were the problem. They convinced you that without them you would be lost. And even after you leave, their voice still lingers in your head. That's why the real battle isn't with them. It's with yourself. It's about silencing their voice and rediscovering your own. And this is where most people get stuck. Because when you leave a narcissist, you're left with an emptiness. Not because you miss them, but because they spent so much time filling your life with chaos that now in their absence, there's a void. And if you don't actively work to fill that void with something healthy, you risk falling back into the same patterns. So what do? You rebuild, you reclaim your identity, you rediscover your passions, you surround yourself with people who genuinely care about you. You create a life so fulfilling that the thought of going back to them becomes laughable, because the best revenge isn't anger, it's happiness, it's success, it's thriving in a way they never expected you to. And let me tell you, nothing terrifies a narcissist more than seeing you happy without them. Seeing you move on, seeing you no longer need them, because they convinced themselves that you were dependent on them, that you would always come crawling back. But when you prove them wrong, when you show them that they had no real power over you, that's when they truly lose. But listen, healing from a narcissist isn't just about them. It's about making sure you never allow someone like that into your life again. Because if you don't heal, if you don't break the cycle, you will attract the same kind of person in a different form. That's why self-reflection is key. You have to ask yourself, what drew me to them in the first place? What red flags did I ignore? What part of me thought I deserved to be treated this way? Because the moment you start asking those questions, the moment you start doing the inner work, that's when you truly take your power back. That's when you make sure no one ever manipulates you again. So understand this. You don't heal by exposing a narcissist. You don't heal by getting revenge. You don't heal by proving them wrong. You heal by moving on, by becoming stronger, by creating a life that has no room for their toxicity. That's how you win. And once you do that, once you truly let go, you'll realize something. You were never the weak one. You were always the strong one. You just had to see it for yourself. And here's the truth. The moment you decide to walk away from a narcissist, you take the first step toward freedom. But that freedom doesn't come instantly. It's not just about cutting them off physically. It's about cutting them out of your mind, out of your emotions, out of your identity. Because they didn't just manipulate you, they conditioned you. They trained you to react, to seek their approval, to question your own worth. And if you're not careful, even after they're gone, their voice will still be in your head, whispering doubts, replaying old wounds, making you wonder if you were the problem. But let me tell you something, you were never the problem. You were the supply. You were the person they latched onto because they saw your strength, your kindness, your loyalty, and they wanted to control it. Narcissists don't target weak people. They target people with something valuable. And now your job is to take that value back. So how do you do that? How do you truly move on without looking back? You start by recognizing that closure is a trap. You don't need a final conversation. You don't need an apology. You don't need them to admit they were wrong, because they never will. A narcissist will never give you closure, because closure means accountability, and accountability is something they will never take. Instead, you give yourself closure. You accept that you'll never get the answers you want. You accept that justice may never come. You accept that they will go on spinning their lies, playing their games with someone else. And that acceptance, that's what sets you free. But here's where most people struggle. They get stuck in the anger. And I get it. It's infuriating to realize you were played, manipulated, used. It's painful to see how much time and energy you wasted on someone who never truly cared. But staying angry means they still have control over you. It means they're still living in your head, still shaping your emotions. And you deserve better than that. So what do? You channel that anger into action. You use it as fuel to rebuild yourself. You take all that energy that you once gave to them and pour it into your growth. You get healthier, you get stronger. You build a life so fulfilling that their absence doesn't feel like a loss. It feels like a blessing. And let me tell you, that's when you win. Because the one thing a narcissist never expects is for you to rise without them. They expect you to crumble. They expect you to come crawling back. They expect you to stay broken, replaying old memories, longing for the fake love they once gave. But when you don't, when you move forward, happy, confident, untouchable, that's what truly breaks them. Because, understand this, narcissists don't feel real emotions the way you do. They don't experience love, connection, or empathy. What they crave is control. What they fear is irrelevance. And when you no longer react to them, when you stop feeding their ego, when you treat them like they no longer exist, that's when they lose. But listen, moving on isn't just about leaving the past behind. It's about making sure you never let someone like that into your life again. Because if you don't heal, if you don't take the time to understand why you tolerated their behavior, you will attract the same kind of person in a different form. That's why self-reflection is everything. Ask yourself, what part of me allowed this? Where did I ignore the red flags? What childhood wounds did this relationship trigger? Because when you start answering those questions, you start breaking the cycle. And once you break that cycle, once you truly reclaim your power, something incredible happens. You stop being drawn to toxic people. You stop seeking validation from the wrong sources. You start setting higher standards, not just for relationships, but for yourself. You become the kind of person who doesn't just survive narcissistic abuse, but thrives beyond it. And that right there, is the ultimate victory, because your best revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right. It's realizing that you are always enough, always strong, always worthy. You just had to believe it. And when you rise, you don't just rise a little. You rise completely. You rise above the need for closure, above the temptation to engage, above the desire to prove anything to them. Because the truth is, they were never going to give you closure. They were never going to admit what they did. They were never going to take accountability. A narcissist doesn't operate in a world of truth. They operate in manipulation, in control, in illusion. And the moment you realize that, you stop expecting them to change. That's the turning point. When you stop waiting for an apology, when you stop waiting for them to wake up and see your worth, when you stop looking backward and finally start moving forward, that's when you take your power back. Because here's the reality. If someone could walk away from you, let them. If someone could betray you, lie to you, manipulate you, and still sleep at night, let them go. That's not your burden to carry. Their lack of conscience is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your healing, to your future. And I get it. Sometimes the hardest part isn't letting go. It's believing you deserve better. Because when you've spent so much time in a toxic environment, your mind starts playing tricks on you. It tells you that maybe you were the problem. Maybe you overreacted. Maybe you should have tried harder. But that's the conditioning talking. That's the voice they planted in your head. And the only way to break free from that is to rewrite your own narrative, to remind yourself of the truth that you are enough, that you always were, that their inability to love you the right way was never a reflection of your worth, it was a reflection of their emptiness. See, a narcissist doesn't love. They use, they extract, they take what they need and discard the rest. And the reason it hurts so much wasn't because they took something from you, it's because they made you believe that they were something they weren't. They sold you a dream. They mirrored your hopes, your desires, your values, and then slowly they chipped away at you. And now you have to rebuild. But you're not just rebuilding what was broken. You're building something entirely new, stronger, wiser, untouchable. And here's where real growth happens, when you start focusing on yourself instead of them. When you take all the energy you once gave to them and redirect it into your own life, your goals, your purpose, your passions. Because let me tell you something, the best revenge isn't exposing them. It isn't making them regret losing you. The best revenge is thriving. It's living so fully, so unapologetically that they become irrelevant. And this isn't just about avoiding toxic people. It's about elevating yourself to a level where they can't even reach you. It's about becoming so secure, so self-sufficient, so whole within yourself that their presence or absence doesn't affect you. Because when you reach that point, that's freedom, that's power. That's the moment you realize that they never had control over you. They only had the control you gave them. And now you take it all back. You take back your confidence, your self-worth, your voice, your ability to say no without guilt, your ability to walk away without looking back, your ability to trust yourself again. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You start attracting real, genuine connections. You start surrounding yourself with people who lift you up instead of tearing you down. You start believing in yourself in a way you never did before. And most importantly, you stop fearing the loss of people who were never meant to stay. Because now you understand losing them wasn't a loss. It was a gain of clarity, a gain of strength, a gain of a future where you are in control. And that's where your power lies. Not in proving anything to them, not in changing them, but in changing yourself, in choosing yourself, in becoming the person you were always meant to be. And that's the greatest victory of all. Because the true victory isn't in making them see what they did. It isn't in forcing them to understand your pain. It isn't in making them feel what you felt. The real victory is in your growth. It's in your healing. It's in your ability to move forward without bitterness, without resentment, without the need for revenge. And I know that's hard. It's hard because everything inside you wants justice. Everything inside you wants to scream to make them see the damage they caused. But here's what you have to understand. Justice doesn't come from them admitting what they did. Justice comes from you reclaiming your life. See, the moment you stop waiting for them to validate your experience, the moment you stop needing them to acknowledge your worth is the moment you take your power back, because they will never give you the closure you're looking for. And that's not because you don't deserve it. It's because they are incapable of it. They are incapable of self-reflection, incapable of true accountability, incapable of the depth it takes to own up to the hurt they caused. So stop expecting it. Stop waiting for the apology that will never come. Stop replaying the conversations in your head, hoping for a different ending, because the only closure you will ever need is the one you give yourself. And I need you to hear me when I say this. Walking away is not weakness. Letting go is not losing. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is survival. It is strength. It is the very thing that will set you free. Because every time you let them pull you back into their games, every time you engage in their manipulation, you are feeding their power. And they thrive off that. They thrive off your reactions. They thrive off your pain. So the best thing you can do, starve them of it. Give them nothing. No reaction, no attention, no emotional energy. Let them sit in their own chaos while you build your peace. And make no mistake, peace is the real flex. Not revenge, not getting even, not exposing them. Peace, living a life so full, so aligned, so deeply rooted in self-worth that they become nothing more than a distant memory. Because here's the thing, people like that, they don't change. They just move on to the next person to manipulate, the next person to control. And if that's the case, let it be someone else. Let it not be you. Let them go. Not for them, but for you. Because what's waiting for you on the other side of this, it's something they could never give you. It's freedom. It's authenticity. It's relationships built on trust, on mutual respect, on genuine love. It's waking up every day and knowing that you are safe, that you are valued, that you are no longer at war with someone who only knew how to take. And the most beautiful part, when you heal, you become someone unbreakable. You become someone who doesn't need validation from anyone else. You become someone who trusts their own voice, who listens to their own intuition, who walks away from anything that no longer serves them. Because at the end of the day, this was never about them. It was always about you, about your growth, about your ability to rise above what was meant to break you, about your decision to never again let someone else dictate your worth. So stop looking back. Stop wondering if they miss you. Stop questioning if you made the right choice. You did. You chose yourself. And that will always be the right choice. Because when you finally see yourself the way you were meant to be seen, when you finally embrace the strength that has always been inside you, nothing will ever have power over you again. And here's what you need to realize. Choosing yourself isn't just about walking away from the narcissist. It's about rebuilding yourself. It's about taking back every piece of you that they tried to break. It's about standing in your truth without fear, without hesitation, without the weight of their manipulation holding you down. Because narcissists, they don't just control you with their words, they control you with their silence, with their absence, with the way they condition you to doubt yourself, to question your own reality, to feel like maybe, just maybe, you were the problem. But let's be clear, you were never the problem. The problem was the way they twisted love into control. The problem was the way they made you feel small just so they could feel big. The problem was the way they drained you, made you feel like you were walking on eggshells, made you believe that if you just did more, if you just loved harder, if you just gave a little more of yourself, then maybe, just maybe, they would finally treat you right. But the truth? There was never going to be a right. There was never going to be a moment where they suddenly woke up and realized how much they hurt you. Because for them, it was never about love. It was about power. It was about control. It was about making sure that no matter what, you stayed right where they wanted you. But now you get to take that power back. Now you get to rewrite the story. Now you get to decide that their version of you, the version they tried to keep weak, the version they tried to make dependent, the version they tried to break, is no longer the version that exists. Because you are more than what they made you believe. You are stronger than the pain they caused. You are wiser than the lies they told you. And when you start to step into that, when you start to see yourself clearly, when you stop looking at yourself through the lens of their manipulation, everything changes. And yes, healing is messy. It's not a straight line. Some days you'll feel free. Other days you'll find yourself wanting to go back, not because you miss them, but because you miss the idea of what you thought it could be. And that's okay. That's part of the process. But you have to remind yourself of the truth. Remind yourself of the sleepless nights. Remind yourself of the anxiety, the self-doubt, the way you never felt good enough. Remind yourself of the exhaustion that came with constantly trying to keep them happy, of the way they always made you feel like you were the problem. And then remind yourself of what's ahead. A life where you are free, a life where you are surrounded by people who don't play games with your emotions, a life where you wake up and finally feel peace. Because that's what healing is. It's choosing peace over chaos. It's choosing yourself over the illusion of what could have been. It's understanding that the closure you're looking for doesn't come from them. It comes from you deciding that you are enough, that you always were, and that you never needed their validation in the first place. And that's what they don't want you to know. That's what they fear the most. Not you exposing them, not you calling them out, but you becoming someone they can no longer manipulate. You becoming someone who sees through their games. You becoming someone who no longer gives them the reaction, the attention, the energy they crave. Because when you do that, you starve them of their power. You leave them with nothing to hold on to. And they will try, oh, they will try to pull you back in. They will try to convince you that they've changed. They will try to play the victim. They will try to guilt you into coming back. But don't fall for it. Don't let their words erase the pain they caused. Don't let their temporary kindness make you forget the long-term damage. Don't let their desperation for control make you second-guess your worth, because you are worth more than that. You are worth more than manipulation disguised as love. You are worth more than the cycles of hurt and apology, hurt and apology, hurt and apology. You are worth real love, real respect, real peace. And when you finally see that, when you finally choose that, nothing they say, nothing they do, nothing they try will ever be able to pull you back into their world again. Because you will know deep in your soul that you deserve more. And that is the greatest revenge of all. And when you finally break free, when you finally step away, something strange happens. At first, there's relief, a weight lifted, a sense of clarity, a deep breath you didn't even realize you were holding. But then the doubt creeps in. The questions start running through your mind. Did I overreact? Was it really that bad? Maybe I should have handled it differently. Because that's what a narcissist does. They train you to second guess yourself. They make you believe that every problem was your fault, that every fight was something you could have avoided if you had just been better, more patient, more understanding. But let me tell you something. It was not your fault. You did everything you could. You gave them chance after chance. You tried to reason, tried to compromise, tried to love them in a way that would make them love you back. But a narcissist doesn't see love the way you do. They see love as control. They see love as something they can use to manipulate, to keep you hooked, to make you feel like you need them more than they need you. That's why walking away isn't enough. You have to rewire your mind. You have to unlearn every toxic belief they planted in you, because they made you believe that love is supposed to hurt, that love is supposed to be exhausting, that love is supposed to be a constant struggle, a battle for their attention, their approval, their validation. That is not love. That is survival. And you were never meant to survive in love. You were meant to thrive in it. So now the real work begins. You start by reclaiming your identity, because for too long they made you doubt yourself. They made you believe that you were too emotional, too needy, too difficult. They made you feel like you were never enough. But listen to me, you were always enough. You were always worthy. You were always someone deserving of real love, of respect, of kindness. And now you get to remind yourself of that every single day. And yes, healing is painful, because when you leave a narcissist, you don't just grieve the relationship. You grieve the version of yourself that you lost. You grieve the years you wasted, the energy you poured into someone who was never going to change. But don't let that grief keep you stuck. Let it fuel you. Let it remind you why you are never going back. Because the truth is, a narcissist doesn't change. No amount of love will fix them. No amount of patience, of understanding, of sacrifice will make them see you the way you deserve to be seen. And deep down, you know that. You've always known that. That's why they kept you confused. That's why they kept shifting the blame, rewriting history, making you question what really happened. Because if you ever truly saw them for what they were, if you ever truly believed in your own worth, they would lose all control over you. And that's exactly what's happening now. Now you are becoming untouchable. Now you are learning to trust yourself again. Now you are walking away not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And that's the real victory. Not exposing them, not making them pay, not proving to the world who they are. The real victory is becoming someone they can no longer affect. Because the biggest lesson in all of this, you don't need closure from them. You don't need an apology. You don't need them to admit what they did. The only closure you need is knowing that you are free. The only validation you need is the peace that comes with finally choosing yourself. And when that day comes, when you finally look in the mirror and see the person you were always meant to be, you will understand that leaving wasn't the hardest thing you ever did. It was the best. And as you continue moving forward, something even more powerful happens. You start to see the patterns. You start to recognize the signs, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the way they twisted your words, made you feel guilty for things you didn't even do. You begin to understand that it was never about you. It was never about how much you loved them, how much you gave, or how much you sacrificed. It was always about their need for control. Their need to dominate, to be admired, to be the center of your world while giving you nothing in return. And once you see it for what it is, you can never unsee it. That's when real freedom begins, because now you're no longer just healing from what they did. You're preparing yourself so that it never happens again. Because let's be real, narcissists don't just exist in relationships. They're everywhere. They're in families, in friendships, in workplaces. They disguise themselves as charming, intelligent, charismatic people who seem to have it all together, but underneath it all, they are empty. And the only way they can feel full is by draining others. And you refuse to be drained ever again. That's why your healing can't just be about getting over the past. It has to be about building a future where you never let someone like that have power over you again. It has to be about strengthening your boundaries, sharpening your instincts, trusting yourself so deeply that the moment someone starts showing those toxic patterns, you walk away without hesitation. Because the old you would have stayed, the old you would have tried to fix them, would have made excuses, justified their actions, told yourself that maybe, just maybe, if you loved them enough, they would finally change. But the new you knows better. The new you doesn't negotiate with manipulation. The new you doesn't wait around for respect. The new you doesn't entertain people who drain your energy and call it love. And let's talk about that energy, because that's what this is really about. A narcissist doesn't just take your time, your emotions, your trust. They take your energy. They leave you drained, exhausted, questioning everything. That's why healing is so much more than just walking away. It's about reclaiming that energy. It's about filling yourself up again, not with their empty promises, not with their validation, but with your own power. And that power comes from understanding one simple truth. You were never weak for loving them. You were never foolish for believing in them. You were simply someone with a kind heart who saw the good in the wrong person. But now you see clearly. Now you understand that real love doesn't demand that you shrink yourself. Real love doesn't require you to suffer. Real love doesn't leave you feeling like you are constantly chasing, constantly proving, constantly bending over backward just to be enough. And here's the most important part. You don't have to be angry to move on. You don't have to carry resentment. You don't have to get revenge, because the greatest revenge, it's peace, it's happiness, it's thriving in a life where they no longer have any access to you, where their opinion no longer matters, where their presence is no longer a shadow hanging over your life. Because that's what they wanted. They wanted you to be stuck. They wanted you to keep thinking about them, keep replaying the past, keep wondering what you could have done differently. They wanted to live rent-free in your mind long after they were gone, but not anymore. Now you take back your power. Now you rebuild, you refocus, you create a life that is so full of joy, purpose, and self-respect that they become nothing more than a distant memory. Because the truth is, the best thing you can do isn't to call them out, isn't to make them see what they did, isn't to wait for karma to catch up with them. The best thing you can do is live so well, heal so deeply, and become so untouchable that they no longer exist in your reality. And that is real freedom. And when you reach that level of freedom, something incredible happens. You stop being afraid, not just of them, but of anyone like them. Because you've been through the fire and you came out stronger. You learned the lessons, you faced the pain, and you refused to let it define you. And now you trust yourself in a way you never did before. Because let's be honest, before there were signs. Maybe they were subtle at first, maybe you ignored them, maybe you thought you were overreacting, but looking back, you can see it now. The small manipulations, the backhanded compliments, the way they made you doubt yourself little by little until you didn't even recognize who you were anymore. But now you pay attention. Now when someone tries to gaslight you, you recognize it instantly. Now when someone tries to manipulate you, you don't entertain it. You see through the games and you refuse to play. Because the most powerful thing you ever did wasn't exposing them. It was exposing yourself to the truth that you are worthy. The truth that you are enough. The truth that real love, real friendships, real connections don't require you to be anything other than who you are. And that's the part that narcissists hate the most. They don't hate being called out. They don't hate the confrontation. No, what they really hate? Being irrelevant. They hate when they can no longer control how you feel, how you react, how you see yourself. They hate when you stop explaining yourself. Because that's the trick, isn't it? They pull you into arguments, they push your buttons, they poke at your insecurities, not because they care about resolving anything, but because they want to keep you engaged. They want to keep you explaining, justifying, defending. But the most powerful response? Silence. Walking away. Not engaging, not allowing them access to your emotions, your thoughts, your peace. Because that's what healing looks like. Healing isn't proving to them that you were right. It isn't getting them to apologize. It isn't waiting for them to change. Healing is realizing you never needed their validation in the first place. And let's talk about that, validation, because that's what kept you hooked, isn't it? The highs and lows, the push and pull, the way they made you feel like the most important person in the world 1 minute only to tear you down the next. That cycle, that addiction to their approval, that's what you're breaking free from. Because the truth is, you never needed their approval. You never needed their love to be whole. You never needed their recognition to be valuable. What you needed was you. You needed to see yourself the way you wanted them to see you. You needed to love yourself the way you kept hoping they would. You needed to validate yourself in a way that made their opinions irrelevant. And once you do that, once you truly do that, you become untouchable. Not in a way that means you don't feel pain, not in a way that means you never struggle, but in a way that means no one can ever take you back to that place again. No one can ever make you question your worth again, because now you know that your energy is sacred. You know that your peace is priceless. You know that your love is valuable. And not everyone deserves access to it. And that's the real lesson. That's the real growth. Because the version of you who first met that narcissist, they didn't know these things. They had to go through the storm to learn them. They had to feel the pain, the confusion, the heartbreak, to come out on the other side with clarity, wisdom, and strength. And now that you have that strength, now that you have that wisdom, you don't just survive, you thrive. You don't just heal, you transform. And that transformation, that's something no narcissist will ever take from you again. And when you reach that level of transformation, you realize something else. You're not just free from them, you're free from the version of yourself that tolerated them. You're no longer the person who second-guessed every decision, who walked on eggshells, who shrunk themselves just to avoid conflict. You've become someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who no longer hands over their power to those who don't deserve it. Because let's get real. The reason they were able to control you wasn't because they were powerful. It wasn't because they were smarter. It was because they understood one thing about you. You had a need. Maybe it was love, maybe it was validation, maybe it was security. Maybe it was simply the fear of being alone. And they played on that. They saw what you were missing and they convinced you they were the only ones who could give it to you. But here's the truth. They never gave you anything. Everything you thought they provided was an illusion. They made you feel special only to take it away. They made you feel wanted only to make you doubt yourself. It was never real. It was a game they played, a trap they set, and for a while you fell for it. But not anymore. Now you see what was happening. Now you understand that real love doesn't require you to suffer. Real respect doesn't come with conditions. Real connections don't make you feel small. And now you make decisions from a place of clarity, not desperation. And this isn't just about them. This isn't just about narcissists. This is about every toxic situation in your life. It's about the friendships that drained you, the jobs that made you feel worthless, the habits that kept you stuck. Because once you wake up, once you realize your worth, once you step into your power, you stop entertaining anything that doesn't align with your growth. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop proving yourself to people who were never going to appreciate you. You stop begging for things you should have never had to ask for in the first place. And that's where real freedom begins, because now instead of trying to change them, you change yourself. Instead of trying to fix the situation, you remove yourself from it. Instead of trying to prove your worth, you simply live in a way that reflects it. And that's the part they'll never understand. That's the part that will haunt them, because they expected you to stay the same. They expected you to always be there, to always forgive, to always make excuses for them. They never thought you'd grow. They never thought you'd leave. They never thought you'd wake up, but you did. And now there's no going back, because the version of you that they manipulated no longer exists. The version of you that accepted their excuses is gone. The version of you that ignored the red flags has disappeared. Now you move differently. Now you recognize the signs before they even have a chance to take root. Now you trust yourself in a way you never did before. And that's the ultimate win. Not revenge, not exposing them, not getting them to admit they were wrong. The real victory is becoming someone they can no longer reach, becoming someone they can no longer hurt, becoming someone who no longer craves what they pretended to offer. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful thing you can do is reclaim your life, reclaim your peace, reclaim your joy. And when you do that, when you finally step into the person you were always meant to be, you don't just survive them, you outgrow them.